What we're talking about is if you are achieving peak performance, then you are the best you can be in whatever it is you want to achieve.
Yes.
So if you want to achieve something specific in your family life, we'd say, well, how do you achieve that peak performance? If you want to achieve something at work, how do you achieve that peak performance? If you want to get to a certain place with your health and your wellness, what does peak performance look like for you?
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you're the best of the best of the best.
No, it just means for
what
you.
it means is that you are being your best self. And that's what I think we've got to really focus on here is how can you be the best version of yourself?
Yes. Hi and welcome back to The Peaks Life. I'm Mike Warren, again with Lynn Fernie for little bite-sized chunks of wellness wisdom. And today we're going to pull back the curtain.
Oh.
We love that. A little bit of what's behind the scenes. A lot of people asking about Peaks, Peaks formula, Peaks the name, what is Peaks? So I thought what we might do over a series of episodes is just run through the formula that is Peaks, what makes up the Peaks wellness pillars, just to give those people who are tuning in a bit of a sense of the thinking behind Peaks and what each one stands for.
You mean we can't just say, it's amazing, everybody should do it?
We can and we do.
And everyone will believe us?
And we could say it's a secret formula that no one knows until you.
No, we don't do secrets.
No, we don't do secrets.
We're going to share everything. We're going to share everything because that's our style. And we're actually really excited, aren't we?
We are, because we do, in all seriousness, we have a lot of people who do say, please help us understand what is the Peaks formula, what does Peaks stand for, what do you do? And it's really nice to be able to go, this is it. This is the formula, this is the stuff that we coach and train and help, and we have these great success stories. So it's nice to be able to just share that.
And we've got nothing to hide. There are no secrets. Everything about what we do is actually probably more simple than people really expect.
They're going to get to the end of the episode and go, oh, that was it. Oh.
And so we want everybody to know what the Peaks formula actually is and how to apply it, because we believe everybody deserves amazing results. Everybody deserves amazing wellness. And, in all areas of their life, we want people to be happy and have amazing success. And so the Peaks formula is super important in all that.
And if people can just if they can listen to a few podcasts or YouTubes and listen and take the formula and implement it themselves and get the results that many others have, that would be awesome. We can touch a bunch of lives just by sharing the formula. If they need help and support, we can do that as well. But if they just want to take the formula and just implement it and get the rewards, awesome.
That's it. So here it is. Here is the start of the formula.
So let's go with the first letter. So P is for Peaks, and I'm sure the P means something.
It does. So we're talking here about performance. And I think that when people talk about performance, it gets used in all sorts of contexts. It perhaps sometimes has almost a negative connotation because people see it as performance is for elites.
Yes.
It's for the top of the it's the top athletes, or it's the top performers when it comes to career or work. And that's really not what we are talking about. What we're talking about is if you are achieving peak performance, then you are the best you can be in whatever it is you want to achieve.
Yes.
So if you want to achieve something specific in your family life, we'd say, well, how do you achieve that peak performance? If you want to achieve something at work, how do you achieve that peak performance? If you want to get to a certain place with your health and your wellness, what does peak performance look like for you?
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you're the best of the best of the best.
No, it just means for
what
you.
What it means is that you are being your best self. And that's what I think we've got to really focus on here is how can you be the best version of yourself?
Yes. And to start that journey, and this is what we go through when we coach people one-to-one or we go through a process, the tough part a lot of people sort of find is having that really sort of honest conversation with themselves to really look at, okay, what is my peak performance now? What do I need to be? Where do I need to improve my peak performance? And having that really sort of pulling back all the layers of the onion and getting to the core of what does the peak performance look like? And there could be a busy executive. So what does peak performance look like if I'm a busy executive? I've obviously got my career and I've got my family and I've got my colleagues. What's my peak performance in that space? I could be a stay-at-home mum looking after a bunch of kids. I could be a student. It could be any of those different occupations. What is my peak performance? If I was to say, I am absolutely at peak performance in my wellness, what does that look like? And that's one of the first steps we go through, isn't it?
Sure is. And this is not unlike goal setting.
No, very similar actually.
Because what we're talking about here is work out what you want to achieve,
yes,
and then work out the steps that are going to take you there. So, as you said, any one of those areas, career, family, study, whatever it is, wellness, health, look at where you are today, look inside, think about where am I, think about where you want to get to,
yes,
and then, work out those practical steps.
Yes.
And then really sit down and write them down, make an action plan, and then work on it really actively. Because if you're not going to work on it actively, then you're probably not going to achieve any more than you're achieving today. So if you want to make a change in your life, and this is all about change at the end of the day.
It is all about change.
Because if you were exactly where you wanted to be, you wouldn't be listening in now.
Turn off, go away.
You wouldn't need us. You wouldn't need the peak formula, because you'd be exactly in the place that you're very, very happy with and you're where you want to be. So essentially, the reason you're listening in, the reason we're talking about peak performance is because there's a change that you can make to get to that point where you're the best version of yourself.
There's a gap between where you are today in some part of your wellness life and where you'd like to be. And it could be just one specific area, it could be a whole bunch of areas. But let's walk through, and for those people tuning, you may need a pencil or a pen or something to jot some notes down, because this is a bit of a quiz, self-reflection, bit of a goal-setting piece. We've got 5 areas that we look at when it comes to helping people understand their peak performance, to get them to think about each of those 5 areas and look at where do they feel they sit at the moment, where would they like to be, and then identify the gaps. So one of the first things is to look at...
Or to say it in a different way.
Yeah.
It's, I guess here at Peaks, we tend to think about wellness in 5 areas. And there are lots of ways that you can define wellness. And in some ways, it's one of those difficult to define words. Because if I say to you, how's your wellness? Everybody's going to interpret that quite differently.
Absolutely.
Some people might say, well, I feel good.
Yep.
Other people might say, well, I didn't sleep good. Other people might say, I don't like my body. So everybody's got a different interpretation. Some people think more about, the mind-body connection. All sorts of interpretations. So we tend to define wellness in 5 really specific areas.
Yes.
And that's to make it very tangible and very practical so that you can measure yourself against each one of those 5.
Yeah.
And so I think it'd be really good if we ran through those 5.
Let's go through them one by one. And the things that, if you're tuning in, the 2 things you're thinking about, and Lynn will walk you through this, is where would you like to be against this particular descriptor? And then where do you think you currently sit? And when we do coaching and things, we use the formula of 1 to 5. So with 1 being you're absolutely the bottom of the scale, you're in the lowest point against how you feel about this, or 5 being you're absolutely at your peak performance, you're at the highest possible state. So the first one is energy. So firstly, describe, when you say energy, what does that mean? And then while you're explaining it, those people tuning can think about, where do I feel my energy level is now? And where do I feel my energy level would like to be? What's my peak performance? And we think about the gap.
So I think, when we talk about energy, what we're talking about is, basically having enough of this thing that we call energy to get through your day, get through all your tasks, be awake and alert, be engaged, be present. So, if we take the example of an executive, so if I'm a busy executive and I get up very early, then I want to be, if I'm absolutely at the top end of the scale, so I'm giving myself a 5 out of 5, then I'm springing out of bed, I'm excited for my day, I'm feeling amazing, I feel full of beans, I literally, power into my day, probably rattle off a bunch of emails and things first off.
Clear mind, sense of purpose.
Get all the basic tasks done, and then head off to the office. I'm at the office early, I'm there with my team, I've got energy for every one of my team, I've got energy in every one of my meetings, I'm enthusiastic during the day. And really, I do power through my day. I come home in the evening, and again, I've got plenty of energy to put effort into the family activities. So I'm engaged in the family. I'm still very present in the family activities. And then I'll go through, I'll finish my evening, I'll wind down, and I'll go to bed, not feeling dog-tired. No. Feeling pleasantly tired. I've worked hard.
Sense of accomplishment.
I've had a solid day. I've probably been to the gym at some point or done some kind of exercise. So I've gone through the day. I felt good in myself at every point during the day, and I felt like I had plenty of energy. I never got those, afternoon slumps. I didn't get to the point where I was really struggling to get through a meeting or reaching for the coffee.
Yes.
So if I was an executive, that was my day, and I gave myself a 5 out of 5, then I really would power from beginning to end without stimulants, without the need for coffees, without the need for pick-me-ups, and I'd feel amazing.
Okay, so interesting. So the first one in being energy. So we're looking at the example with someone saying 5 is my ideal, but sometimes people don't need to be a 5, do they?
Well, that's it. So the first thing is that the example there was a 5 out of 5, which is somebody who is absolutely buzzing all day, beginning to end. And then maybe, at the other end of the spectrum would be somebody who really drags through the day. They struggle to get up out of bed. They snooze the alarm 5 times.
Live on coffee.
Live on coffee. The first thing they do is they reach for the coffee to have the caffeine kick. And then, they're having sugar perhaps through the day to get them through. And
big slumps.
Really dragging. And in fact, somebody who's a 1 out of 1 may just not be functioning. They may have things that are really debilitating them. They may have chronic disease. So they may be dealing with, some kind of metabolic condition. Or they may be dealing with something like a chronic fatigue syndrome. So really down at the level 1, we're really not functioning. So
and so the practical outlets, if you're in a working role or whatever your job or occupation is, you're probably not completing your tasks, you're falling behind, you may be under performance management.
Well, to be honest, if you're at a 1, you're probably not even managing to get to work.
Staying at home. You have lots of sick days.
Well, I don't even think somebody at a 1 could even go to work. They probably couldn't hold down a job. So that is the spectrum we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody who's high performing versus somebody who literally can't get out of bed. But somebody who's getting lots of sick days might be in the sort of category of the 2, 3. So they're suffering some issues, and they're maybe having a bit of a nap at work every day, they're falling asleep at their desk, they may have some performance issues. They're probably in that 2, 3 category.
Right, so for those people tuning in, so thinking only about energy and thinking about a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being as you've described it right at the bottom end, and the higher levels being 4, 5, being high energy, high peak performance, the first thing is to ask yourself, where do I need to be? Is it 3, 4, 5 to be at peak performance? And not everyone needs to be at 5 because maybe their role and responsibility doesn't require that.
They don't. And even I would even do it the other way. First of all, I'd say, where am I today?
Okay.
So where am I?
Yep.
Okay, I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking about how do I feel when I get up, and I'm thinking about how do I feel mid-morning, how do I feel mid-afternoon, how do I feel by dinner time. What am I like at bedtime? Am my dog tired? Do I fall asleep easily? So just walk through your day and just think to yourself, how do I feel? Be really honest. And then put yourself at a 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. And now you know where you are.
Currently.
And then ask yourself the question, am I happy with that? Because as you said, some people might say, I'm at a 3 and I feel okay.
Yep, feel okay. It's all I need to be.
I'm quite happy with that.
Yep.
I don't feel the need to do anything about it. Other people might say, well, do you know what? I'm at a 3. I get this real slump in the morning. Once I've had my breakfast, and then get a bit hungry, and I feel a bit, I struggle a bit, and then it's often it's a bit of a challenge to get through the afternoon. It's a challenge to get through my afternoon meetings, or I never have the energy to go to the gym. I'd love to go to the gym, but I just don't have the energy at the end of a day. So you might say, well, I would actually really enjoy it if I could get a bit more energy morning and afternoon. And if I had enough energy to go to the gym on the way home and then still come home and do the family activities.
Yes.
So then you might say, well, all right, I'd really like to be at a 4. I don't think I need to go too much further than where I am.
Yes.
But a bit more energy would be really nice.
Good. All right.
And so there, you put yourself, where am I today? And then what is the point I'd really like to get to? Maybe one day I could be a 5.
But at the moment,
but I'd be very, very happy if I could get to a 4.
Good. So that first step of the process, that's the reflection piece. That's the really being honest. Where am I now? Look at the descriptors. Where am I now? Where would I like to be? And what's the gap? And then one of the questions you'll ask later is which areas you're going to focus on. But let's move from energy being the first pillar or the first area to health. So describe for me when I'm scaling myself against a 5 to a 1 on health, what am I looking for?
And so the process works in exactly the same way.
Yes.
So where we've got the 1 is the low end of the scale.
Yes.
And the 5 is the high end of the scale. So if I'm achieving a 5, I'm in absolutely peak health.
And what does that look like?
When we talk about health, we're talking about being free of illness. So, we always think about health and we think about, are we suffering any diseases, any ill health issues, any chronic illnesses? So, is my body moving well? Have I got any joint issues? Have I got any autoimmune conditions? Have I got type 2 diabetes? What about metabolic conditions? Am I suffering any cardiovascular disease? What about my general sort of level of health and well-being? So do I pick up bugs and diseases all the time? Somebody sniffles next to me,
Boom,
and I
you've
know
got it.
I'm going to come down with it. So
absolutely.
what's our immune system like? Are we just constantly picking up bugs and issues? So if I'm at a 5, then I'm in great health. I'm not suffering any of those sort of bugs, bacteria, health issues, joint complaints, metabolic conditions, no issues with cancer and those sort of things. Probably not recovering from major surgery or a major illness either.
Yes.
Being illness free for a long time.
Okay. And
So
if I'm a 1?
if I'm a 1, then I'm right at the other end of the spectrum. I may be battling a major illness. So I could currently have cancer, I may have heart disease, I may have type 2 diabetes, I may be suffering, some other condition which is really challenging me. I may not be able to function again because this time it's my health that's holding me back.
Yes.
I can't hold down a job because I've got a health issue. So, from being that absolute tip-top condition to being probably the worst I could ever imagine.
Yes.
If you put yourself into your worst nightmare, what are all the health conditions that could hold you back or really cause you to lose the life that you've got?
Yeah.
Then that would be the level of a 1.
And just probably it's interesting to sort of talk through when we do a self-assessment. Not everyone two people side by side assessing their own health could come up with very different numbers, even though they might have the same health conditions, couldn't they? Because it is a self-assessment. So it's how I interpret my health. I might give myself a score of 1 out of 5, but someone else with exactly the same conditions gives themselves a 2 or 3 out of 5. It's just my interpretation. It doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter. And, as you said, 2 people side by side could rate themselves differently. They could experience symptoms differently.
Yes.
There may be other stressors in their life which make the health condition far worse.
Yes.
So a really good example would be somebody who's diabetic, next to somebody who's diabetic and overweight.
Yes.
Right, so the person who's significantly perhaps obese and diabetic is probably going to experience their symptoms worse than the person who's simply diabetic. Both have got the symptoms of diabetes, but the person who's also obese is also battling the challenges of obesity. So everything's going to be magnified for them. So they've got the same condition, but one of them experiences the symptoms, far worse than the other one does.
Absolutely.
So again, as we always say, don't compare yourself with others. This is a relative thing. It's a personal journey. It's not an absolute number. It's simply what's the score for you today. There's no right and wrong answer. And it's simply about saying, where am I and where would I like to be?
Yes.
So if you rate yourself as a 3 on the health scale, you've got to ask yourself the question, is that good enough? Can I achieve better?
Yep.
And would I like to achieve better? And do you know what? Even more importantly, am I prepared to put the work in to achieve better? And I want to come back to that at the end. Let's go through the entire score, but really want to come back to that point. Are you prepared to do this?
Because there is nothing happens without a little bit of effort and energy in there. So we've done the first one. Now the second one, their health. Same process again. We're going to look at what's the 1s, what's the 5s, and we're going to say, how do I feel about my health now? And we're going to give ourselves a number. And then we're going to say, where would I like to be? And we're going to give ourselves a number. We're going to look at what is the gap between those two. All right, number 3 then is all about the mind.
It is. So when we talk about the mind, here we're talking about our ability to perform the mental tasks that are asked of us. We're talking about our cognitive performance. So, a few simple examples would be, what's your memory like? So think about short-term memory. What did you have for breakfast? Where did you leave the car keys? What did you do yesterday at work? Can you actually list all those things out very, very quickly and easily, just at the click of a finger?
That's a great question, Marion. I think we should come back to that later.
That's it. Do you know what your name is? Who's your friends? So there's that short-term memory.
Yes.
Then you've got the long-term memory. What's your long-term memory like?
Yep.
Can you remember things that you did last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What about your mental acuity? So the ability to perform complex tasks.
Problem solving, complex tasks.
Problem solving, the ability to think quickly, the ability to be decisive, the ability to go through your general day and perform all of the various mental tasks that you need to. So, people would characterize this in terms of things like, when I get up in the morning, do I have a foggy brain?
Yes, the clear mind, foggy brain piece,
Or am I absolutely crystal clear and I've got that sharp, razor-like, focused thinking?
Yes.
And often we hear that, especially, and I don't want to stereotype, but we do hear this from a lot of women, a lot of executives who are perhaps in that 40 to 50 age category.
Yes.
So they may be in the sort of peri or pre-menopause, or they may be early into menopause. And we know that the hormones going up and down can cause real mental cloudiness. And people who are consuming a lot of carbohydrates, cakes, cookies, ice creams, those sort of foods.
Happens a lot, doesn't it?
They get real foggy thinking. Yes. When you get the highs and lows of the blood sugar, so you've had some sugar and then your brain starts working at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you crash and you can't think for anything. You really hit the wall. So, if you're at peak performance, if you're a 5 out of 5, then from the second you get up until the second you go to sleep, you have that beautiful razor sharp thinking. You can remember everything. You can do those complex calculations. You can do the troubleshooting. Nothing phases you. You don't feel mentally overwhelmed. And we include the stress and the overwhelm in this one as well, because sometimes you have that feeling that your brain is literally full.
Yes.
So if you're really running at peak performance, you don't have any of that. You're feeling amazing. Your brain feels amazing. Easy to remember. Easy to solve problems. And it's easy to make decisions.
And it's all without stimulants at all, because a lot of people sort of rely on their coffees and their alcohols to stimulate them to have that clear mind. So this is without those stimulants. This is how you naturally feel. So then again, same process. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1, as you've described it, 5 being that amazing end, those people tuning in need to think, where is my mind at this stage? Give themselves a number. And then that second question is, where would I like to be? Is that number sufficient for what I need for my own peak performance? Or should I improve that? And what is that number, so we can look at the gap? Now, just a point here, we've done 3 so far. A lot of them overlap, don't they? So they're not standalone pillars. A lot of those, the wellness, the energy, the mind, all those type of things overlap. So how does that work? How do people make sure that they're not sort of thinking about the same thing?
It really doesn't matter, to be honest. They do overlap, because if you are suffering some kind of metabolic condition, or you've got diabetes, not only will it affect how you feel physically, which is then reflected in your health score, it's probably going to affect how your mind functions as well.
And your energy,
you're going
of
to have you're going to have that foggy thinking, and you won't have the energy levels.
Yeah.
So it's likely that especially when you're suffering some of these issues, or if you're coming from a carbohydrate-based diet, that you're going to have low scores, and they're going to be common across the board.
Yes, absolutely.
And what you will find out, sort of revealing a bit of the secret already, is that sometimes a small tweak can affect multiple of these pillars.
Yes, and that's the exciting part, isn't it? You can get some great results. All right, so we've done 3. So the fourth one is an interesting one, because it's a really, it's amazing to see people interpret their score on this one. It's all about their body.
It is, and so I often hesitate to talk about body and body image, because we've got so many issues in our society with, body dysmorphia, and whether we're talking about 16-year-old girls who, still look at photos of models, swimwear models on Instagram, and they want that body, or whether we're talking about men, because there's a lot of dysmorphia. And by dysmorphia, I mean distorted body image. There's a lot of men who have a distorted body image.
Yes.
So we see in our society, I think, a real, quite a frightening trend of people having a distorted image of what they should look like. So we're not talking here about everybody looking like a model.
Good.
What we're talking about is, how do you feel in your own skin? What is your body like relative to you?
Yes.
Right, so if you've always tended towards the chubby side, there's probably no point imagining you're going to be a size 0 model. But it's how do you feel? Do you fit comfortably into your favourite clothes? Have you got quite frankly, big rolls of fat around your body that you're very uncomfortable with? Are you the sort of size that you should be for your frame? What about your body strength? So, have you got a good tone, and have you got muscles that, again, allow you to perform the daily tasks? So, or are you very weak? So, do you struggle to pick up the shopping at the supermarket?
Your physical body as well, yeah.
Yes, I was talking to a youngish girl today, sort of 21-year-old, and she said, my core's really weak.
Yes.
And if I lift heavy, then it hurts my back.
Interesting.
So there you go. There's a really good example of how she perhaps hasn't got the body she wants. She's beautiful. She's absolutely gorgeous. But there's a weakness in the core.
Yes.
So is my body able to perform everything that I need it to perform? So if you're a mum and you're picking the kids up,
yes, interesting.
again, are you getting back problems because you've got that weak core from childbirth? So it's not necessarily about how your body looks.
Yes.
It's about how your body performs. So strength, a bit about the tone of the body, the size and shape of the body. So we've got weight in there as well. We've got the fitness. So can we lift and stretch? Can we move in all directions functionally?
Yes.
Can I bend over easily? Can I tie my shoelaces? All the small practical daily tasks. Doesn't matter whether you're 21 or whether you're 91. Does your body move in a way that allows you to get through your day with comfort and ease?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So if I'm then looking at my scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being my body isn't looking and feeling and able to do what I need it to do, with 5 being my body looks and feels good, I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I'm physically able to do everything I need to do, then it's it's using that scale to say, where do I feel I sit today? And a lot of people have a big change over their lifetime. A lot of people, in their younger days, their body might have felt a little bit better. So as they get older, that scale changes quite dramatically. Where I am right now, and then where would I like to be, with really remembering, is a 3, 4 or 5 where I need to be? Why do I need to have a body of that number? And then working out the gap.
So there's a really good little story that my chiropractor has told me a few times. And he said, I treated this beautiful couple once. He said they came in and they were in their 90s. And they'd been together for, 40 or 50 years, some amazing amount of time. And they lived on their own, they lived at home, they did everything for themselves. And then they got to this point where the lady was actually really struggling to, reach up. And so she couldn't reach things in cupboards. And she was struggling to, because she couldn't put her arms above her head, getting dressed became a challenge. And she was actually facing having to go into a home.
All right.
And so, if you look at where she was...
So into like a care facility?
Into a care facility. What that would have meant, if she got into a care facility, that might have split them up. And they'd been together all of their lives.
Yes.
And so, he looked at what he could do. Now, he was never going to make her into an elite athlete, but what he could do is restore some of that range of motion so that she could continue to live at home.
Yes.
So if you think, if you're that 90-year-old lady, then you might score yourself a 2 because you're not performing as you did when you were a 20-year-old. And you're probably not going to get to a 5 anymore, which is where you were.
Yes.
But you'd be very happy with the 3 because that would allow you to continue living at home.
Yes.
So this is not, remember, it's not all about achieving the 5.
No.
5, especially as you age, may simply not be possible. But getting an incremental improvement that will make your life more comfortable is very, very possible.
And that becomes your peak performance goal in that particular aspect. All right, so the last one there is one that has a lot of discussions all around sleep and having an understanding of what is evaluating your own sleep. What does a 1 look like? And then what does a 5 look like against sleep? So just walk us through that process.
So what I love right now is that there's a real conversation happening about sleep, and I think that's super, super exciting. There's a lot of information and evidence coming out about sleep, and what we're finding more and more is that good sleep is incredibly important for good health, good performance, good body, good mind. So this one really is linked to everything else. And we know that it underpins long life and many other aspects.
Yes.
We can get better and better at what we can do to improve our sleep. Here we're simply talking about how well do you sleep, because it underpins the wellness journey. We know that if we can improve the sleep score by 1 or 2 points, we can have an enormous impact in those other 4 areas of wellness. And a really simple example is weight loss. Because what we know is that the people who sleep better, deeper and longer are more successful in their weight loss journeys. So if you're trying to lose weight, then simply by sleeping better,
which is an amazing sort of
doing
study, isn't
nothing else,
Yes.
you can actually lose more weight.
Yeah,
So
it's brilliant.
if we talk about good sleep and not good sleep, so if you're on a 5 out of 5, then you're going to bed nice and early. So you might be heading off to bed at 10 o'clock. You're probably getting a good amount of sleep. And I'm not going to prescribe the amount. It might be 8 hours. Some people might be 9 hours. But you're getting a good chunk of sleep. You're not waking up multiple times in the night. Your sleep is really good quality. And by good quality, we mean you're getting all the different types of sleep. And we go into that in our other episodes on sleep. When you wake up without an alarm clock. You spring out of bed, you feel refreshed. So everybody, I'm sure, has experienced this at least once in their lives.
Yes.
So if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, you may not, but most people will remember a day or a time when they used to spring out of bed, excited for the day,
Yep, absolutely.
and the alarm clock would go off half an hour later.
Yes.
So that is the sort of utopia of sleep. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got somebody who can't get to sleep. They toss and turn. They simply can't fall asleep. Their eyes just won't close. When they do get to sleep, they're restless and they wake up multiple times. They never get into that deep restorative sleep. They're probably waking between 3 and 4 in the morning. They'd call themselves an insomniac. They can't get back to sleep when they've woken up. And then, they may doze. And then they're really struggling to get up because they're so chronically sleep deprived, they physically can't get up and get out of bed on a morning, and then they drag themselves through the day. So they rely on stimulants to get through the day. So perfect sleep through to the worst sleep you could ever imagine.
So applying the same formula then, so those who are playing along at home, you would think about your current sleep, and you think about where you currently fit between 1 and 5. Remembering if you're a shift worker or you have infants at home, you may not get to a 5 at the moment because your 5 may not be achievable. So if you're at a 3, you might say, I'm going to get to a 4 while I'm doing shift work, while I've got a baby at home, I'm not going to get any further than that. Or some of you might go, I want to be a 5 because that sounds amazing. So by the end of this little process we've just been through, we should now have a number against energy, against health, against mind, body and sleep, a number representing how you feel you are currently in each of those areas, and a number also against where you would like to be. And then we've got a difference between those two numbers is the gaps. Now, each of those we can work on, and the PEAKS formula takes us through that process. But some of them we can work on actively, and some of them we work on passively. So just walk us through that process.
I would say we work on all of them actively.
We do? Okay.
So
good.
I think
checking.
That's
It was a trick question.
It was definitely a trick question, Mike. So I think if we look at them, and we think about energy and we think about health and we think about body and mind and sleep, we sort of accept where we are.
Yes.
Right? So we get what we get and we've got what we've got. And most people don't really know how to affect their energy levels.
That's a good point.
They don't know how to affect their sleep. People will say, oh, I had the worst night's sleep last night.
Yes.
But if I say to them, well, what are you going to do differently tonight?
Yes.
They say, oh, I'll just try again.
Yes.
So that to me is a very passive approach. So you're not actually doing anything actively to improve these things.
Yes.
Because people don't see the link between things like their diet, their routines, the way that they approach their day. They don't see the impact of those things on their energy, their health, their mind, their body and their sleep. So what we would be saying here is, right, look at the scores that you gave yourself in each of the 5 areas.
Yes.
Find the one that really you want to work on first. So, you might be at a 3 on everything, and you've decided that sleep, you'd like to be at a 4, and you're going to work on that one. That's the very first one you're going to work on.
Yep.
So instead of just going to bed and sleeping and just passively accepting the results you get,
there's some things we can do.
what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, let's take sleep and we're now going to actively work on our sleep in the same way that you'd actively go to the gym.
Yes.
In the same way that you'd actively change your diet to get a different result. So we're actually going to actively work on whichever one of these areas is most important for you to improve.
Yeah. Which is interesting because a lot of people, and we were speaking to someone the other day who was in the wellness industry, and his comment was, I've always been a poor sleeper. And you said to him, so what are you doing about it? And he was just like, well, it'll get better over time. And it's like, what are you actively doing? And we know from the work we're doing, there is many things you can do in that sleep space. So part of this conversation today is to talk about the performance and the peaks piece. And this is really where we establish what are the gaps, what are the goals, what are the areas we're going to work on. And then up over the next few episodes, are we going to go through each one of these? Is that the process?
I think we should, Mike. So what I'd encourage people...
I was leading you there.
I thought you might agree.
So I thought you were going to.
So I thought, I think what would be really good is that if people went away from this episode today and just, sat down, took a half an hour.
Did the challenge,
came up with, where am I at?
Yes.
Just think through that energy, think through your health, think through your mind, think through your body, and think through your sleep. Give yourself a score,
yes,
and then work out where you think you can get to.
Yes.
And I know you don't know how to do that right now, but just think about what would be realistic, and then pick one of the 5.
Yes.
You might want to work on 2, 3, or 4. That's fine.
Always, you need one as a start point.
But we would recommend picking that start point.
Yes.
And then what we'll do over the next couple of weeks is I think we can walk through some tips, tricks, tools, tactics and strategies for how to improve your score and how to get you from where you are today to where you need to be. And we've got lots and lots of ideas, and there'll be something in there for everyone.
Yeah, a lot of them overlap. So we're going to go through the E, the A, the K and the S, the formula of peaks, and some of them will work on just one particular area. So we'll work on one aspect, but some will actually affect 2 or 3, won't they?
Well, in actual fact, I think most things will affect more than one area. So that the added benefit, if you want to put it like that, or the bonuses,
bonus content,
are absolutely that if you work on one area, it's highly likely you'll see improvements right across the board.
Yes.
So that's the really exciting thing is it's almost like, the key that unlocks the secret door.
Yes.
And leads you to the magic kingdom.
Yes.
There are sometimes some incredibly small things that you can do, and I really do mean incredibly small. They're very simple
hacks, some wellness hacks.
Very, very simple steps that you can take that will unlock a level of wellness that you never imagined possible.
So it's exciting episodes ahead. So join us next time on the Peaks Life, on the Peaks Journey, because we've got some great episodes coming up which will unlock the formula and give you some great wellness results. And we'll see you all next time.
Absolutely.